So thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Gaia Rizzi and I have the very pleasure of welcoming you to our DP Group webinar. Today, as you know, we will focus on a workshop on investment strategies for Dubai. And I have the very pleasure of introducing my DP Group colleagues. So we will have Ms. Veronica Gianola, Senior Associate of the Andrea & Partners Legal Counsel, Nikita Polischuk, Financial Analyst of PhD Advisory, and then our very esteemed speakers who will give their very professional experience by being currently based in Dubai. So we will have Mr. Sergio Padula, Technical Director of iGuzzini Middle East, and then Mr. Francesco Santa, Managing Director of HBG Events. And then finally, of course, if you have any questions, we will try to address as many as we can, and feel free to drop your questions in the chat at any moment. Now, before leaving the floor to the speakers, I would just like to briefly go through who we are at DP Group, just to, let's say, walk you through why we're doing this webinar and why we invited you to join us today. So I will quickly share the screen. Yes. So DP Group is a consulting group which is currently based in 10 cities around the world, because our mission is to be present in every business capital of the world, because we would like to help our clients as much as we can to make their business successful in the countries where they want to invest in. Our structure, we were founded in 2013, and as of today, we're counting on 4 companies, which I will briefly introduce in a second. And as I said, we have the representative of 3 of them today, only one is missing. And Andrea & Partners Legal Counsel is in fact our law firm, currently specialized in a very wide range of practice areas. So from corporate and commercial law, M&A, business intelligence, investments, dispute resolution, and especially FDI is one of the services that we mostly offer to our clients. And that's also why Veronica from our Milan office will focus her presentation on this part. PhD Advisory, which is represented by Nikita today. As the name says, they're focusing on tax and accounting. So they support companies with accounting outsourcing, tax compliance, overall financial supervision, and business consulting. Eastern Communication and Events, of which I am representing here today. We are based in Shanghai, and we provide services to, let's say, mostly foreign companies entering the Chinese market for social media management, PR, and events planning. And then our latest company, Chance and Better Education. So our colleagues from this company, they support both students and management level teams and staff to, let's say, foster their either education or careers with language training, online education, and also senior courses. Here are our offices. So as I said, we have 10 spread across China, India, Italy, Vietnam, Dubai, and also Russia desk. So I will also share this presentation with you all after the webinar in case you would like to get in touch with us at any time. With that said, I thank you once again, and I will leave the floor to you, Veronica, for your presentation.
Thank you, Gaia. I am going to share the screen. Okay, can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, good morning everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Veronica Gianola, and I'm Senior Associate of the Andrea & Partner Legal Counsel. I am based in Milan, so I'm in our Milan office. Today, we are going to have an overview of the most recent legal updates on FDIs in Dubai and in the UAE. So just to start, I would like to give you a brief introduction of the UAE. UAE are 7 Emirates, of which 2 are Dubai and Abu Dhabi, so the most known. The GDP of UAE in 2020 has been equal to 354 billion US dollars, a little bit less than 20% compared to the Italian one. And UAE are ranked #1 in the Arab world to attract foreign investments. So it's a territory which is very open and willing to have foreign investors. A little mark about Italy. Italy has been ranked #8 partner for commercial transaction of the UAE and #9 for the export. The Made in Italy covers 2.68% of the UAE market, and there are, of course, opportunities which should focus in F&B, metals, clothing, furniture, and hotelery. To have a look on FDIs, the value of FDI in the United Arab Emirates in 2020 was around 19.9 billion USD. So it's a very big number, and we can see that FDIs are mainly in the sectors of wholesale and retail trade, real estate activities, financial services and insurance, manufacturing, mining, and quarry exploitation. A remark that is important in our discussion today is that before the issuance of the new FDI law, foreign investors were allowed to invest in this territory owning only up to 49% of the shares of the company. So for each company in which there was a foreign investor, the 51% of the shares was mandatorily owned by a local UAE partner. So the control was always by a local person. Forms of FDI are the most common, as also in other territories. So I would say limited liability company and private joint stock company. The main characteristics of these two companies are that both include the possibility of being owned by a single owner. Either it could be a natural person or judicial entity. The share capital should be no less than the one indicated in the positive list or set by the free zone. To start a business, it is always requested a license, which is divided into commercial, industrial, and professional license. And the business can be started either on the mainland or on free zones. The difference between these two areas is mainly also covered by the new law that we are going to see later. For free zones, we have to consider that in the UAE, there are almost more than 30 free zones. And in this area, the ownership of 100% ownership by a foreign has been always guaranteed, and you can have some incentives if you invest in this area under a tax point of view, for the share of the profits, for the employment. So it's these are areas where the investments are most favorites. The first overview on the legal from a legal point of view is the new FDI law. The new FDI law has entered in force this year in June 1st, 2021, and regards foreign direct investments. So amends the commercial company law of 2015. This law aims to promote the investment environment, expand and diversify the production base, attracting foreign direct investments in advanced technology, knowledge, and training. The most important amendment that has been introduced with this law is that Rule 4951 has been removed. This means that now it is allowed also for foreigners to own the company for the whole part of the share, so for 100%. These on mainland UAE. There is a limitation, of course, upon the setup. The authority is always allowed to consider and evaluate your investment, and if it carries on activities of strategic effect, this could be limited. And I would say that these activities of strategic effect are those falling into the negative list. So there is always discretion of the authorities in the investment to evaluate your investment. Another requirement that has been removed is the appointment of a national service agent. So each company used to have a national service agent, a local agent that could operate in support of the company, and this requirement has also been cancelled, so it's not needed anymore. Another important aspect is that an LLC owned by one person can be established also by a foreign national. So not only now foreigners can invest and own company entirely, but they can also be single person, either, as we were saying, natural person or judicial entities. The second important aspect and update for the law on FDIs is the Resolution 16 of 2020, which introduced a positive list of the economic sectors in which foreign direct investment can be proceeded. The resolution includes 122 economic activities that are in the positive list, for which the foreign ownership is allowed for 100%. This list is an attachment of this resolution and is divided into 3 categories. An investor so can launch its business in the agricultural sector, manufacturing and services sector. An important aspect of this list is that the law establishes also which is the minimum capital, the minimum share capital of the company that should be set to start the business. For example, we can have the manufacturing of wearing apparel, which is at 15 million dirham, while for sports goods is reduced to 3 million dirham. And there is also the case of services, for example, design services or general consultancy, in which the minimum capital is set by the law. So it's not set by this law, but from the local laws time by time. Some fields, as I was saying earlier, are still not permitted for investments. The negative list includes, for example, the exploration and production of petroleum materials, the investigation, security, all what is related to the military sector, banking and financing activities, payment systems, and insurance services. So for these fields, of course, the foreign investments are not allowed. These are the main updates that we have under legal point of view for FDI in Dubai, and have marked the change of the law in Dubai and in the UAE. So please let me know if you have any question. We can discuss later on during the Q&A. In the meantime, I thank you for your attention, and I give the floor back to Gaia. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica, very much. I already actually received one question for you, but as I said earlier, I'm just going to touch upon the questions in the final Q&A session. So this is just a reminder for our audience. If you have any comment, questions, please feel free to let us know. Now, that said, I will leave the floor to my colleague, Nikita. Let me share this one. And the floor is yours. Okay,
thank you, Gaia. Good morning, good afternoon, dear speakers, dear viewers. My name is Nikita. I'm the financial analyst at HBG Advisory Tax and Accounting, part of DP Group. Very glad to be here to take part in this webinar on Dubai and the UAE. And the topic of my presentation today is about doing business in Dubai and in the UAE from the fiscal perspective. As Dubai is only one of the 7 Emirates of the UAE, I believe it's better to consider the overall fiscal framework of the UAE as it generally applies to all the Emirates in the country. So the agenda for today is the following. I'm just going to touch base basically on the few concepts about doing business in the UAE and just provide a few comments. Then I'm going to talk about the fiscal perspective, so essentially about the taxation system which is implemented in the UAE. Then I'm going to talk about some of the compliance requirements for the businesses which are established in the UAE. And later on, as I believe for most foreign investors, banking is very important. So I'm just going to introduce the banking in the UAE and some general concepts. And I'm going to conclude with some remarks on the future developments of the country and Dubai in particular. So when foreign businesses and foreign entrepreneurs decide on the destination for doing business and for setting up a company abroad, they have a number of factors to consider. And from this point of view, the UAE and Dubai in particular offer very attractive terms. One of the most it offers one of the most favorable trade regimes in the Gulf region. So essentially, this alone is the reason for many companies and many entrepreneurs globally to set up their presence in the UAE or specifically in Dubai. It is well known that the UAE has a very well-established infrastructure and a strong banking system. And just as an example, I have put this picture here on the left, where you can see, of course, the famous skyline of Dubai, and it just shows how well the technological and infrastructure development have been over the past years. As previously mentioned by my colleague Veronica, 3 zones exist in Dubai and in the UAE that permit 100% foreign ownership. And couple this with a favorable taxation regime, you really have very attractive terms to establishing a company there. A few other points I would like to mention are the absence of foreign exchange controls and rather stable political environment, which of course today is a very important factor for foreign investors. Moving forward, in terms of the ease of doing business in the UAE, the country ranks 14th in the index of economic freedom so far this year. And in fact, it scores high in all the key criteria of the index. And those include rule of law, government, regulatory efficiency, and open markets. Speaking about the region itself, the UAE is ranked first in the Middle East and North Africa region, and it has shown basically remarkable growth and willingness and openness to do business with the rest of the world in the past few decades. Moving on to the taxation, I believe here primarily the most important tax to talk about is the sales tax. Before 2018, the UAE did not impose any sales or value-added tax, but starting from January 2018, the UAE introduced value-added tax at the rate of 5%. And this tax generally applies to most goods and services. But we note that for the goods and services which are exported outside the territory of a Gulf Cooperation Council, the VAT applies at the rate of 0%. So basically, the sales are exempt. What does this mean? It means essentially that as a foreign investor, let's say you set up a company in Dubai, and then you provide these services, for example, in Italy. And for these services, you receive a payment in your Dubai company, and these services are exempt from VAT. Of course, upon provision of the relevant documents, which include, for example, service agreements, invoices, and some other documents which can be deemed satisfactory by the local authorities. And just to clarify, what does it mean outside the territory of Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC? GCC consists of 6 countries, which are Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and of course the UAE itself. And last point to mention about I believe, which is important to mention about the VAT in the UAE, is that for businesses which have received more than 375,000 dirham, which is roughly 102,000 US dollars per year, they must register with the local tax authority for the purposes of VAT. After the registration, these businesses must declare the VAT every quarter, and this requirement is compulsory for all the businesses that have once registered for the VAT, even if their goods and services, basically, even if their sales are exempt from VAT. Nevertheless, this is the compulsory requirement set by the authorities in the UAE. Next, as for other taxes, it's actually much simpler. As for corporate income tax, the UAE basically does not impose any corporate income tax for the majority of the businesses, so your profits are not taxable unless you are in the oil and gas business, or you are a branch of a foreign bank or a foreign banking institution. In this case, the upstream oil and gas activities are taxed at the rate of 55%, and the profits of the branches of foreign banks are taxed at the rate of 20%. As far as personal income tax is concerned, similarly, there are basically no personal income taxes in the UAE. And also the UAE does not apply withholding tax on dividends, interest, and royalties. Finally, the UAE also doesn't apply any capital gains, inheritance, gift, and net worth taxes. And this is especially important in the context of wealth management and life planning, especially for high net worth individuals who have assets in multiple jurisdictions and would like to better manage their taxation issues. Next, just to briefly mention about the compliance requirements for the businesses. Generally, for joint stock and limited liability companies in the UAE, they must appoint at least one auditor. So essentially, all incorporated companies have to file their audited financial statements with the Ministry of Economy for the purposes of renewing their trade licenses. And what is important for multinational companies is that International Financial Reporting Standards, or IFRS, are adopted by the Securities and Commodities Authority and the Central Bank of the UAE as the default accounting principles. So for the multinationals, this is important for the purposes of consolidation of their financial statements. Just to briefly talk about the banking, some general information here. Of course, the Central Bank of the UAE is the banking regulatory authority of the country. The official currency of the UAE is named the United Arab Emirates dirham, abbreviated as AED, and it is officially pegged to the United States dollars at a fixed exchange rate of 1 USD equal to 3.67 AED. This is also could be quite relevant for businesses or individual entrepreneurs who have their contracts denominated in the USD. So basically, this eliminates any foreign exchange risk. On top of that, the local currency is freely convertible into any other foreign currencies. As far as the account types are concerned, there is nothing very major here. Basically, the most common account types are available in the UAE, such as savings account, current account, and time deposits. And what is also relevant for foreign investors that they can access local lending, which in some jurisdictions, for example, abroad, is not possible. And just some of the concluding remarks and some of the comments on the future developments. We can see that the UAE and Dubai in particular continue to evolve as a leading destination for foreign investment in the Middle East. Dubai actually outlined they created a so-called master plan where they shared their vision for the future and basically sort of a plan for the year 2014. The plan focuses on, I believe, the most relevant issues today, such as sustainability, infrastructure, economic activity, and also attraction of foreign talents in the country and in the city in particular. And of course, stable political environment today can actually provide very attractive opportunities for foreign investors in the country. And that's all for my presentation. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat or just send us an email. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I also see here we already received a question for you, but same as for Veronica, we'll get back to you on this later. So now I have the very pleasure of introducing our first external speaker, Mr. Sergio Padula, Technical Director of iGuzzini Middle East. So Sergio, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes to share your, let's say, experience with us. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you, Gaia. Thank you. And good morning, good afternoon to everybody who is connected. Very pleasure to be here. Just you letting you know, I'm very Dubai enthusiastic. It's 14 years almost living here. So I will try to summarize this experience for the fantastic company I work through. We start the presentation. I give a brief introduction. Who we are. I work for this company called iGuzzini. This picture is our fantastic headquarters based in Recanati, Marche region on the Adriatic coast. The story of the group started more than 100 years ago with Guzzini brothers that are the leader in household goods in Italy, and then a spin-off, I will say, of the company in 1959, start of architectural lighting. The story was of again Enrico Guzzini, that was a migrant in Argentina and then back, and start to work owns of manufacturing element. And in 1938, we were the first company worldwide to use Plexigal for our tools. In 59, these are the founders of the son of Mariano that create iGuzzini. In Italian it means illuminazione, is illumination. So this is how we identify the company. And 2009, this is the this is the end of the journey. So far, we've been acquired, we've been part managing of a Fagerhult lighting group that is a Swedish group belonging of 12 leading lighting company worldwide. We, as iGuzzini, we have 22 branches in 5 continents. When you see red, basically what we colonize, with 86 international partners that are commercial partners. We got 8 regional commercial hubs that you can see over there. And Dubai is one of these, where we belonging to the Middle East, Asia at the beginning, and then we got South Caucasia, English-speaking Africa. So these are all the territory that we, let's say, manage from the Dubai hub. Basically, the story starts in 2008 when we opened the UAE office, and then quickly we expand all over the region with the Qatar, Saudi, Lebanon, Turkey, and then South Africa area. So by the time we control, you know, several distributors on the market as well. This is an overview of our, again, main headquarters, where the main production is again Recanati on the Adriatic Sea, Marche region. And actually, the production network of based of logistic clearly reason is split in 3 main hubs: Italy, China, in mainly Shanghai for the South Pacific area, and Montreal for the whole North America and South America. This is very short who we are and what we are doing. Why Dubai? Dubai, the speakers, Veronica and Nikita, clearly mentioned before what were the reason why the company decided to have the hub over here. And what I will say as a journey, it's been a successful story. And yes, the city himself got this opportunity to do business, but also not only related to business as well. I will say the message is that is a nice place to live. Very multicultural, very open, very respectful, very safe. Those probably are the reason of why the city is on the spot. Of course, there are complications as a everyday aspect of the life, but if you are an entrepreneur or if you believe to expand your business or your area of activity, definitely based on our history, I will recommend to set up your prominence in Dubai. Fantastic international hub for travel now that we can start again. The infrastructure level is top class, I will say. Of course, can be congested, but you have a public service like metro, bus system that help a lot. I will say, compared to the jet lag system, is very advantage to make business all over what is considered Europe and Asia. It's really a bridge. Tomorrow, there will be the opening of the Expo, Universal Exhibition, and it's very nice to have this circle. I've been in Shanghai in 2010, and then back to Milan in 2015, and now back to Dubai. And this circle is really what is describe the logistic of the town. They say that in 3 hours you can reach, I believe, 5 billion of people. It's very true. We are really in connect from India to Africa to Europe and Asia. It's a place where things happening. What I would like to share with you, and going to close my little speech and open to all your questions, is what I'm reading at the moment. It's very new book. I'm not be paid absolutely to promote, but if you are going to think to do or to approach business, I will recommend this book. Showbase City is the history. It's very recent. It's been realized in last month. And talk about how the architecture, and I will say urbanism, made Dubai. Todd Rees is a Stanford researcher and professor based in Amsterdam, and is an overview of the latest 15 years. This year, by the way, there will be the jubilee of the UAE Foundation, so it's another big step. And going through the history of the urbanism, how Dubai is being built so far, because clearly it's not finished yet, you can understand the evolution of the civilization, and as well how this city is so rich of culture and tradition that can be a paradox for a young city, but is not, because if I just have to resume, in our team we have more than 10 nationalities, 4 believers, and different gender that are all very, very, very accepted. Thanks a lot, and I'm more than happy to listen to your question.
Thank you very much. And I have to say, I definitely wrote down the name of the book because now you intrigued me. So I'm really curious to read about that. And of course, as you rightly said, with the Expo opening tomorrow, it's a very exciting moment that, you know, puts Dubai even more under the spotlight for foreign investors, because As our three speakers so far all mentioned, Dubai seems to be a place that kind of puts foreign investors comfortable for all the many good reasons that were mentioned so far. Now, I also have a couple of questions for you, but I will leave them to the end so that I can leave the floor to our fourth and last speaker for today, Mr. Francesco Santa, Managing Director of HBG Events Dubai and International Business Development Director of the group. The floor is yours, and thank you also, Francesco, for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone, depends where you are. So I'm Francesco Santa. I work for the Italian Exhibition Group. Italian Exhibition Group is the first and actually the only example of two exhibition organizers, two Italian exhibition organizers merging together. So a few years ago, in fact, Fiera di Rimini and Fiera di Vicenza joined hands and merged together to create a new group that now is listed in the stock exchange. If we consider the turnover is the second biggest exhibition organizer in Italy, but if we consider the exhibition owned and organized, actually we are the largest organizer in Italy and one of the biggest in Europe. As the result of the merge between two groups, we own different venues in Italy. We own our major venue in Rimini, and we own another venue in Vicenza, of course. We manage also another venue in Arezzo, thanks to a partnership we had with Arezzo recently signed with them. We also have a very fantastic Congress Center in Rimini, where we organize more than 190 conferences every year. So our total business, let's say, of course, our business has been affected a lot by the pandemic. I don't want to say more than others, but as you can imagine, exhibition is made of exhibitors and visitors gathering together, thousands of them. So in Italy and in most of Europe, in the last 18 years, we were not able to organize any event. IEG has some of the most important exhibition in the international exhibition market. Mainly focused on 6 different categories: food and beverage, jewelry and fashion, tourism and hospitality, wellness, of course, with Rimini Wellness, and green and technology. Just let me give you a little overview on the 4 or 5 most important shows, because it allows me also to explain why we came to Dubai. So first of all, we organize Ecomondo and Key Energy, that it's an international trade fair related to energy recovery, sustainable development, and sustainable energy and mobility. You can imagine how important is such an exhibition nowadays. We already have an edition of this exhibition in China, organized every year in Chengdu, and we are planning to export also this exhibition, of course, in Middle East and in South America. Another very important show for us, it's CEGEP. It's actually the most important international trade show in the world of artisan gelato, ice cream, pastry, bakery, and coffee. At the moment, the show is only organized in Italy, but again, we are planning to export this event in Asia for sure and in South America. One of our masterpiece, of course, is Vicenza Oro. Everyone knows probably the shows, especially ladies, but it's a fantastic show, #2 in the world and #1 in Europe for jewelry and technology related. I can already tell you, because it's official, in February we will have an edition of Vicenza Oro here in Dubai, co-organized with Informa Market Group. It's the biggest exhibition organizer in the world. It will be a first edition, and the name will be JGT Dubai, Jewelry, Gem and Technology Dubai. And we are aiming, both of us, IEG and Informa, to make this event as the most important event, not only in the region, but in the entire area of Middle East and Asia. Last but not least, of course, Rimini is well known for our sport and lifestyle event, Rimini Wellness. long tradition, long history of this show. And this is gives me also the opportunity to tell you why we came to Dubai. We bought a company here in Dubai, HBG Events, that is organizing a Dubai Muscle Show, Dubai Active Show. The goal was to create a family of fitness event around the world. So we bought this company in Dubai, and we also launched a fitness event in Mexico that will take place in November this year as a first edition. It's called MAX, Mexico Active and Sport Exhibition in Leon. And again, we are planning, actually, we are very close to announce more shows in Asia and in South America again. Before the pandemic, our group, I mentioned before, organized more than almost 50 exhibitions in all our venues and more than 190 conferences with a total turnover close to 200 million euros. These are numbers pre-pandemic. We are all working to go back soon to the same level. So why Dubai? I'm the last speaker, so of course, Veronica, Nikita, and Sergio already explained all of the reason why Dubai, but let me tell you something more related to our industry. Before coming to Dubai, I have been working 1 year in Singapore. I can tell you that there is a huge difference now in Dubai compared to most other cities in the world, including Singapore. During the pandemic, most of the businesses in Dubai never stopped. And one of these businesses was the exhibition industry. Apart from a small period of a couple of months last year, exhibition industry in Dubai never stopped. And also life never stopped actually in Dubai compared to, for example, Singapore. And this is also another reason why most of the companies are coming also to Dubai. They realize that not only in the normal situation, but in a difficult economic period and social period, business can be run in Dubai compared to other places. And as Sergio was mentioning, Dubai is geographically in a great position because it really, in 2-3 hours, you can fly in so many places and you connect to so many other markets around Dubai that goes from Europe to Asia very, very easily. So it's a real central point in the world panoramic. So we decided to make the investment, and in a good year, because as you mentioned before, Expo will open tomorrow, but not only Expo, probably most of you knows that this year UAE celebrates 50 years of its birth in 1971. And so it's in December we will have a jubilee, and due to this fact, the government of UAE has launched a new investment plan. It's called UAE 2071. Not only the 2040 that Nikita was mentioning before, but they just launched. Now that we are very close into the jubilee, they just launched Dubai UAE 2071. It's a new investment plan that will bridge the UAE into another 50 years of history. Their goal is really to make the UAE, not only Dubai, of course, but the entire UAE. Of course, Dubai is the major point of attraction, but to make the UAE the best place, not only to live, because as Sergio was mentioning, is a very safe place, but also the best place to work and to start a new business. Most of the reason why we are in Dubai, as I said, you mentioned before, Veronica and Nikita, so I don't want to repeat myself. So probably it's better to leave more space to question at the end of our speeches.
Thank you, Sergio, very much. Francesco, excuse me, very much. And of course, I also have questions in addition to those from the audience, because your experiences sound very interesting. So I still remind that the chat is open for any questions, but I will start with the ones that we received so far that I marked down. So first of all, I have one for you, Sergio. They have been asking how and if the pandemic has affected your business. What were the main challenges that you had to go through, and how do you see your business sector developing within the next 5 years?
I have to say that in reality, the construction business is been hit, but not like other sector, let's say hospitality or exhibition or traveling. You know, we had the stop of the you know, Emirates is a big working space for the Dubai community, and they've been hit massively from the pandemic. For us, yes, of course, it was slow, but in general, the construction business never stopped completely. We are in architectural lighting, and what was affected was the traveling. For example, you saw by my presentation that we have several regional office, so I was almost impossible for myself. I am on the technical side, so I go to site and visit. Was almost impossible to travel, and now we restart with a lot of precaution. You need to PCR and everything, but at least in GCC, Sunday I'm going to Saudi. Saudi is one of the prominent market at the moment in the area. That help us as well to recover very quickly. So let's say that 2021 so far is going back on track where we were going. We will believe we will need another years. So next year as well, 2022 will be another consolidating, and we can see the growth back on track where we predicted in 2023.
Great.
I hope I answered the question.
No, that's perfect. Thanks a lot. And
may I jump in the question just to ask Sergio, how do you see the reaction of Dubai? So is it positive? Do you consider it positively for the restart after the pandemic, or is it a slow move?
No. Veronica, Dubai has been always by history. Bear in mind, I was here when it was the crisis of 2008, so I saw bad moments already. What amazes me is the speediness of this city and this country to react to any kind of situation, I will say. The traffic on those days, and Francesco can tell you, is crazy. It became, again, last night, I had to just make a little transfer from my home to, I had to wait 35 minutes to get a taxi, to give you an idea. So the city, yes, is vibrant, maybe because of Expo, for sure, but in general, let's say also one thing, fair enough, this government, the leaders that rule the city and rule the country, they had, in my opinion, a very visionary approach to the pandemic. We start vaccination in beginning of December. We are, I believe, second country after Portugal, country vaccinated. Like the way they deal with the pandemic, we still wearing masks everywhere, but the way they manage everything, in my opinion, after a back in Europe, here was excellent. But maybe Francesco can integrate, I guess.
Yeah, you're right, Sergio. You're totally right, totally agree. I would only add that to confirm what you said, that we mentioned before the quality of life. I would say also quality of services in Dubai. Everything is created to make your life easier and better. So you don't have to worry and to care about many other things in your day-by-day life. Everything is very simple. You mentioned about vaccination process here was so simple, so easy. My children are here with me and they are already vaccinated since April.
Wow.
If you need a COVID test, you can just go to an app and ask for somebody come to your house and make the COVID test in your apartment and get the result on your iPhone in 3 hours with a much lower price compared to Italy. When I come to Italy, it's a disaster to book a flight, because if I book a flight on Monday, I cannot have the COVID test on Saturday and Sunday. I need to ask that the COVID test must be raised in English. So here in Dubai, quality of services are so high that really you don't have to worry about everything. And the city, as Sergio was mentioning, compared to last July when I came first in Dubai, it's already completely different. Traffic, it's booming. People are everywhere. Restaurant, you need to book in advance any restaurant. And really it's an exciting city at this moment.
No, I think this, sorry Gaia, but this mindset gives and is an added value for the territory and for the country, as well as for foreign investors.
Yeah, I was
it's
about
appealing.
to say the same thing, that it feels very refreshing to hear so much optimism and, let's say, ease of life when we hear, you know, stories so complicated from all over the world, especially us with our offices. Some of us, for example, our colleagues in Vietnam are still mostly in a lockdown, as in China. It's really difficult to, as we were saying, leave the country. You can, coming back, I would rather not go through, let's say, all the process to get welcome back to the country. And then of course also Veronica, she told us many stories of the difficulties that she had to go through in Italy. So no, I just want to say it was a pleasure to hear that at least we can hear Dubai is moving ahead really nicely. And if I may now, Francesco, I actually have another question for you, because this comes also from my personal experience, because here in Shanghai, we deal a lot with events and with big exhibitions, and we saw a very, let's say, important switch to virtual and digital events. So not only webinars like the one that we're doing here today, but rather, let's say, companies investing in creating 3D exhibitions, virtual booths, something that goes beyond the, let's say, offline kind of event itself. So I wanted to hear from you if you also see this turn taking place in Dubai, or rather not for the time being.
I'll give you an answer very open. I mean, people are looking forward to meet again in person.
Yeah.
Digital event was a very good solution during the pandemic at the beginning. Now, when I talk to my customer and I tell them, let's have a Zoom call, let's have whatever it is online, they just say, no, thanks, when can we meet? And I can tell you that here in Dubai, events are already running. As I mentioned to you, they never stop. But we started events also in Rimini, with Rimini Wellness last week, and we will have Ecomondos very soon. We did Vicenza Oro. I can tell you that Vicenza Oro was extremely successful, even if we were not able to have any visitors and exhibitors from China, as you can imagine, or from most of the country in Asia, but was extremely successful. And here in Dubai, every week there is an event, there is an exhibition. And so, yeah, a digital event probably will continue to support somehow the physical event. Mm-hmm. But they will be a small percentage of the success and of the turnover of the company. People want to meet. People want to. I was in Milan in August before coming back to Dubai, and a restaurant were busy, completely fully packed, as it was very unusual to see all the restaurants in Milan like this, but everywhere I know my friends in Italy, everywhere it's like that. And here in Dubai, if you want to go to major restaurant, you need to book weeks in advance. And just to give you some data also, maybe Sergio can confirm also, the investment in real estate in the last 2 months in Dubai literally boomed. at the highest level in history. And if you look also at the booking rate of the hotels in Dubai are again at the level of 2019. So people wants to travel, wants to meet, wants to shake hands, to hug.
No, that's impressive.
The digital event will definitely now be part of our life, but something, let's say, collateral, I would say.
I see. No, thanks a lot for this perspective, because it's interesting for me, but also, I mean, I hope for the rest of the audience. And I keep you here for another question that arrived, and then maybe Sergio, you can step in, because I have a question that is asking, in your opinion, which kind of sectors do you see growing the fastest? So, for example, you working with many different companies, operating in different industries, if you see any specific industry that you really, let's say, see growing, especially within the short term, starting from now.
I don't know if Sergio, you want to answer?
It was for me the question. No, I was taking some notes. Just I wanted to integrate because anyway, talking from let's say a client perspective of exhibition. At the moment, just to give you an idea, there is Light Middle East, that is the exhibition of lighting. We are not attending. There is been, in my opinion, and this is also sharing with the company that I'm working for, this situation, the pandemic, give also an opportunity to rethink. Exhibition in general, I'm talking for our particular business, but in general, was a very, very expensive budget cost in our marketing plan. I agree with Francesco that the virtual and the real will still together, but at least for us is an opportunity to rethink the way we are going to spend our money in this kind of activity.
Right.
I'm totally agree that the presence will be there. I was in Milan during the design week, the beginning of November. We did an event outside the exhibition in our space, was very successful. We had different people coming. So we are rethinking the way to do events in general. These two integrated discussion where we were before. About the sector, honestly, what we saw, there will be a very speed up linked to what everything connected to sustainability.
Okay.
We are in lighting, of course, the LED revolution is already there, but we can see interconnectivity that is taking a lot. So of course we are already working and everything because the data will interconnect to the light fittings, but from the customer itself, we can say that the energy saving approach linked to sustainability and renewable energy source can be a paradox. People say, oh, Dubai oil, no. Forget the end of oil is gone, even if they are in the negative company as Veronica presented, but the attention that the country itself and the city is putting of this topic, the sustainability, that is a big one, is massive. And I believe that this will be the trend that will drive and will drill the economy probably in the next years.
No, that's very interesting. I don't know if Francesco, you have anything to add on this?
I want maybe only to add that, of course, the most important business and sector in Dubai probably is real estate. So they are still building everywhere, making huge construction every day. So the real estate sector will be a massive sector for the future of Dubai, always. But there is also, how can I say, a big improvement also in all the activities of the free zone. Free zone are pushing a lot to have a lot of new company. More free zone will come. and they are now in the position of taking advantage of some other hubs in the world. I mentioned before Singapore. I read yesterday a recent report from Singapore. The population of Singapore decreased in the last 18 months by 12%. Most of them foreign people, foreign companies. You know that Singapore is still closed to the world. To get in is very difficult, a lot of restriction, and especially the attitude of the Singaporeans and Singapore government towards the foreign people is very different now. So companies and foreign people, they realize that probably when everything is fine, Singapore is a paradise, but when things get difficult, probably it's not the perfect location for them. So we are seeing lots of companies that were previously before based in Singapore and are now moving to the free zone in Dubai. So we are looking at a massive migration of company from Singapore and other hubs, of course, Hong Kong, to Dubai. So this is it's a huge opportunity for international companies to move to Dubai. Also because, as you all mentioned at the beginning of this conference, that government in Dubai are easing a lot of rules and laws to attract more investment and more company here in the region. So, yeah.
What linked to the first question, Gaia, you did. While in Europe and other countries were dealing with the pandemic, talking about recovery plan, blah, 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 here the government act. This is the biggest difference. They were very fast to release visa and release now you can get golden visa 10 years. So they massively facilitate, because anyway, the city needed the people. This is no doubt. What they build and what they are going to build, because again, the process is not stop, they need people. So what they understood during the resilient moment, let's say that, okay, let's make this much easier and comfortable for everybody, with always the rule, because they have very, very black and white rule. This is what we like, everybody, I believe, that live here. But in that rules, then get the people, and they make much easier. And really, this is show, you know, the capability to react faster than everybody else in the world. No, I don't know anybody in the world that make this during the pandemic or the crisis. No, they did overnight. Okay, they can because of the system, but they did.
I completely see your point. In fact, actually, during the presentation with Nikita, we were commenting that we heard many of our friends, either from Russia, from Europe, that still when the pandemic was very much ongoing in our home countries, we could still see people flying off into Dubai in complete safety, where, let's say, as you just mentioned, the processes were extremely easy while still, of course, very safe. So that's also why we wanted to do this webinar today, because you know, often we focus our attention on Asia, specifically China, as many people say the future first economy in the world, but also with our clients and by seeing the situation in general, we thought that it would have been interesting to actually go through the status in Dubai and have a let's say update from the legal and fiscal perspective on the situation. And of course, your contributions were extremely interesting. Now I see it's actually already time to close, and there were another couple of questions left, but you can reach out to us by email, and then we will make sure to put you in touch with the respective speaker. And with this, I want to thank you very much once again, Mr. Francesco Santa, Mr. Sergio Padula, and of course my colleagues Veronica Gianola and Nikita Polischuk for joining us today, and the audience for sure for joining us. And I hope you all enjoyed this webinar today. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day.